pristine uniforms, unwavering respect, impeccable order. For decades, the world has looked at the Japanese school as a gold standard, a model for raising diligent, high-achieving students. We see the familiar images of children bowing to their teachers, working together in perfect sync to clean their own classrooms. It's a picture of flawless harmony, an ideal many nations aspire to. But beneath the polished surface, in the echoing silence of after-school corridors, some stories are just waiting to be told by the ghosts of students left behind. What if the very people tasked with upholding that perfection are also the source of a quiet, spreading crisis? What if the system that produces such remarkable academic results also carries a dark, unspoken cost that is systematically covered up? Tonight, we journey into the silent, tense hallways of the Japanese school system. We'll uncover how the unrelenting pressure for perfection can brew a toxic fear, a fear that can slowly and deliberately turn a respected teacher into a student's worst nightmare. These aren't just strict teachers applying discipline. They are educators transformed, instruments of a system that sometimes values conformity over compassion and institutional silence over student safety. They are the enforcers, and tonight we'll explore exactly how that system is creating them. And in the worst cases, that transformation doesn't stop at silence or neglect. It crosses a line where authority becomes cruelty and discipline becomes abuse. The numbers themselves are staggering. In the 2022 academic year, Japanese schools recognized a record-breaking 681,948 cases of bullying. This figure, released by the Ministry of Education, reflects a grim reality. But this rising number isn't just a statistic to be filed away in a government report. It's a deafening chorus of silent screams. The increase also reflects a positive change, an enhanced effort by schools to finally identify and report bullying, which for decades was often deliberately ignored or downplayed. But better reporting doesn't mean the system is healthier. It means the damage has become too severe to hide. Still, the number continues a disturbing upward trend. Behind each of these numbers is a child, and in far too many cases, a teacher who either looked away or, worse, became the tormentor. This isn't a story about a few bad apples. It's the story of an orchard where some believe the soil itself, fertilized by generations of pressure and conformity, has become toxic. We're going to dig deep to find the roots. To understand how a respected educator can become a figure of fear, we must first understand a phrase that sends a chill down the spine of every Japanese student and parent: Juken Jigoku. It translates quite literally to examination hell. This isn't just about studying for a final exam. It is a national rite of passage, a high-stakes trial by fire that many believe determines a student's entire future trajectory. From a very young age, children are funneled into a relentless pipeline of competition, where their future prospects, their career, their social standing, their entire life, are seen as dependent on which prestigious high school and university they can enter. The competition is so fierce that an entire shadow education system, the world of juku or cram schools, thrives alongside it. Imagine finishing a full day of school only to go straight to another school for several more hours of intense, grueling test preparation. This is the daily reality for a substantial proportion of Japanese students. Free time evaporates. Childhood vanishes. The singular goal is to score higher, to beat the competition. The psychological toll is immense, with this pressure cooker environment being linked to rising rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout among students. But this immense pressure doesn't just stay with the students. It flows upwards. At the top is the Ministry of Education, setting rigid national standards. Below them are the school administrators, whose reputations are directly tied to their institution's academic rankings and university acceptance rates. And at the very bottom, bearing the full crushing force of this pressure, is the classroom teacher. While a teacher's formal evaluation includes many duties, their performance is often informally and intensely judged by one metric above all: their students' test scores. Their career advancement, reputation among peers, and professional standing can hinge on pushing every single student past the finish line. In this environment, a struggling or different student can be seen not just as a pedagogical challenge, but as an active threat to the class's collective performance. The system primes them to see non-compliance not as a cry for help, but as a defiant act of sabotage. And the system has a name for those who fail to keep up: Ronin. These are students who fail their university entrance exams and spend a year or even more studying to try again. They are like wandering, masterless samurai from a bygone era, their lives put on hold by a single test. The existence of the Ronin is a constant, looming threat, a ghost story told to children to remind them of the terrible price of failure. This fear is one of the most powerful weapons in the system's arsenal, and it's a weapon the teachers are often forced to wield. But intense academic pressure is only one part of the story. When that pressure collides with one of Japan's most deeply ingrained cultural forces, you get a system where individuality isn't just discouraged. It is often treated like a disease that must be eradicated. This idea is rooted in the concept of awawo, or group harmony. On the surface, it's a beautiful and noble ideal, a society that prioritizes cooperation, consensus, and the collective good over individual desires. But this ideal has a dark underbelly. In its most extreme form, WA can demand that the group be perfectly, unnaturally uniform. Anything or anyone that stands out is seen as a nail that must be hammered down. And in the school, the teachers are often the ones holding the hammer. This enforcement is known as seikatsu shido, or lifestyle guidance, and it's here that the obsession with absolute control becomes disturbingly visible. It's governed by what are often called burakku kōsoku, or black school rules, a set of bizarrely specific, often draconian, and humiliating regulations. These aren't typical dress codes. We're talking about rules that can mandate the exact shade of black for a student's hair, forcing students with naturally lighter brown hair to dye it black to conform. There are rules specifying the exact length of socks and skirts down to the millimeter, and humiliating reports of teachers inspecting students' underwear to ensure it is plain, unpatterned white. These rules are not simply relics of a past era. While a growing movement across Japan is successfully pushing to abolish them, they remain actively and aggressively enforced in many schools today. This is where the system gives a teacher the justification for abuse. By codifying conformity into an extensive list of rules, the system empowers the teacher to view any deviation not as youthful expression, but as a moral failing. The student with naturally brown hair isn't just a child. They become a disobedient rule breaker. Protecting an individual can feel like an act of rebellion against the system itself. And in a culture where conformity is paramount, rebellion carries a very heavy price. When we say teacher monsters, we don't mean cartoon villains or sadists lurking in classrooms. We mean ordinary educators who, under extreme pressure and institutional protection, begin to rationalize cruelty as guidance and silence as professionalism. So with this immense pressure to perform and to conform, where are the teachers when a student is truly in crisis? When bullying, or ijime, takes root in the classroom, they should be the first line of defense. But in the most harrowing cases, the system allows, and even encourages, them to become the opposite. They become the primary aggressor. We journey now into the dark heart of this phenomenon. The term ijime doesn't fully capture the psychological torment many students endure. It isn't always physical violence. More often, it is a slow, methodical process of social execution. Being deliberately and completely ignored by the entire class, having vicious rumors spread online and in person, or personal belongings systematically defaced and destroyed. It's a quiet, relentless campaign of psychological warfare. In the 2022 school year, there were 923 cases of bullying deemed serious, where students suffered significant psychological or physical harm or missed school for long periods. And in some of those cases, the person leading the charge was the teacher. Consider the infamous case from Otsu in 2011. A 13-year-old boy was relentlessly bullied by his classmates. He was forced to practice his own suicide, had his mouth taped shut with industrial tape, and was made to eat dead bees. When his terrified parents reported the abuse, teachers gave the bullies a light reprimand and were later reportedly heard laughing about the incidents in the faculty room. The boy eventually took his own life. After his death, the school and the local board of education initially tried to cover up the severity of the bullying, demonstrating a chilling institutional instinct to protect reputation over truth. This was not an isolated incident. There are documented cases of teachers who have directly participated in and even orchestrated student abuse. But why? The answer lies not in simple individual evil, but in the systemic issues we've explored. First, a culture of institutional silence makes acknowledging severe bullying a black mark on a school's record. Second, a teacher's perception of the victim can become warped. They may begin to see the bullied child as the source of the disruption to class harmony. The abuse, in a twisted form of logic, can be seen as a form of guidance. Activists and lawyers have even coined a term for this tragic outcome: shidoshi, or death from guidance. Finally, there is a chilling lack of accountability. In the Otsu case, the parents had to sue to get any semblance of justice after police initially refused to even accept a damage report from them. This creates a terrifying reality for a child. The very people meant to be their protectors are shielded by the system when they become abusers. The teacher is no longer just a person. They are an extension of an unfeeling, self-preserving system. And against that system, a single child stands very little chance. The teacher monsters of Japan aren't born. They are made. They are the final, tragic products of a system that, in its relentless pursuit of perfection, risks sacrificing its own humanity. They are often dedicated educators, slowly ground down and remade by a trinity of toxic pressures. The crushing weight of Juken Jigoku, the tyrannical demand for absolute conformity, and a culture of institutional silence that protects the abuser and blames the victim. The consequences extend far beyond the school gates. The psychological scars from bullying and school-related pressure are known contributing factors to one of Japan's most troubling social phenomena, hikikomori. These are social recluses, the quiet casualties of a war they fought in the classroom, who withdraw completely from society, sometimes for decades, unable to cope with a world that may have broken them in their youth. But even within this rigid system, there are glimmers of hope. In the wake of tragedies like the one in Otsu, The Japanese government enacted the 2013 Bullying Prevention Promotion Act, the first comprehensive national law legally requiring schools to identify, report, and take action on bullying cases. The Ministry of Education is promoting more flexible learning, and most importantly, brave teachers, parents, and students are beginning to speak out, challenging the absurd black school rules and demanding a culture of safety over silence. The Japanese school system holds powerful lessons for the world in discipline, collective effort, and dedication. But it also serves as a chilling and vital warning. It warns us that when any system, in any country, values its own smooth operation over the well-being of the individuals within it, it becomes a vessel for something monstrous. It shows us that when order is prized above humanity, the system can turn its most trusted guardians into its greatest threat. The institutional horror we explored tonight is a Japanese story, but it isn't a unique one. Every country has systems that protect themselves before they protect people. If there's a story from your country the world needs to understand, tell us in the comments. That's how our next investigation begins. And next Tuesday, we take this further, inside Japan's abandoned prisons, where isolation, punishment, and institutional silence created horrors that never stayed locked behind bars. This is Horror Across Borders,